important is weighing, measuring and tracking your food? And what happens when you don't weigh, measure and track your food? Well, I stopped tracking for 30 days and I'm going to discuss what happened in this video. Hello fam, and welcome to my channel. My name's Melissa Neal and this channel is all about helping you if you're a woman over 40 or like me over 50 get in amazing shape. And when you're at the time around the menopause, fat loss is a real struggle, isn't it? And in the scheme of things, on average, you're going to gain around about 25 pounds at this stage in life, which is around about kind of 11 to 12 kilos. Unless you take action, you can guarantee you're going to kind of gain weight. And I am a massive proponent of weighing, tracking and measuring your food, because I believe that's the only way of really being accountable for what's going into your body and really understanding exactly how much of each macronutrient, so that's your protein, carbs and fats you're eating, and whether you've got the right energy balance, which is burning more energy than you're consuming. So firstly, I'm going to talk about what tracking really is. I've probably been doing it about 5 or 6 years now. So tracking, simply put, is when you weigh out your food, you measure it. So it might be sometimes you can't kind of weigh a certain food out. So you might use kind of tablespoons and teaspoon measurements, that kind of thing. And then you track it in an app like Chronometer, or my favourite is now MyFitnessPal. So why would you track your food? Well, the reason I absolutely love women over 40 to do this, and by the way, I've seen 10,000 women through my programs and I've coached hundreds of women at this stage in life. So I do have a massive amount of experience of this. And the reason I love women at this stage in life to take this route is because you know exactly what you're eating. So you're going to know exactly the amount of protein you're taking in, the amount of carbohydrates you're taking in, and the amount of fat you're taking in, but also you're going to understand how many calories you're taking in. And this is kind of more important than anything else when we're thinking about fat loss, is understanding exactly what we're consuming, what we're putting into our mouths, because then we know what kind of impact it's having. But if we don't weigh and measure, if we are doing something called portion control, and I know I have a lot of comments on my videos about this saying, I don't want to weigh and measure my food, I want to do portion control, we are not going to get great results that you see my women get on my programs. They do this and they get amazing results. I had one woman sign up for coaching recently and she kind of said to me, Melissa, I didn't realise until I started weighing and measuring my food exactly how much I was consuming, how much rice on the plate I was putting. Just a simple thing like that. So it is really important. It's probably not so important to weigh and measure things like lettuce and cucumber because they're kind of extremely low in calories. You're not going to get fat on lettuce and cucumber. So knowing that you're in a calorie deficit is going to be really important, as well as your macronutrients. And I'm now going to go into exactly what happened to me when I stopped tracking my food. Earlier this year, I kind of reached my goal size. I was quite happy, didn't want to lose any more body fat, so all I needed to do was maintain what I've got. And that kind of went on for quite a number of weeks, possibly months. And then I went on vacation. And when I go on vacation, I do find that I don't tend to weigh and measure my food. Why? because unless I'm working towards something, it does seem a little bit extreme. And it's like, you've got to take a set of scales with you. If you're eating out, you need a set of scales. If you're staying in a hotel, you kind of need these scales. And it's not great, is it? So I generally don't take my scales with me. So I tend to eyeball my food. I was self-catering, but nevertheless, I eyeball my food. And naturally, what's going to happen, because I'm not tracking on MyFitnessPal, guess what? I'm going to tend to eat more. I don't know about you, but that's what happens to me. I spent some of that time self-catering, some of it staying in a hotel, and hotels are even more difficult than self-catering. Now, that's not to say it's not impossible, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult. Not only that, I did have treats, meals out, that type of stuff. So, you know, you are going to find in that case, you're generally going to be eating more than if you're weighing or tracking your food. Got back home, found it really difficult to get back into the routine of it. Try as I might, I kind of start off the day with every intention, weighing things out, and by the end of the day, and this is partly because I kind of reached my goal, wasn't that interested in it anymore, and was throwing in a few treats here and there, like having dessert, maybe overeating, chucking in like an additional snack or something later in the day, even though it was like a yogurt type of snack. It kind of all adds up, doesn't it? And so what I found is I actually put on more body fat. I can see it visibly in the mirror. I can see it in my pictures. You know, I've just got a few more womanly curves. I did actually hop on the scale and found, you know, yes, I'm about 4 pounds, 2.5 kilos up. So that isn't going to be muscle, by the way. I'm not usually worried about like scale weight, but it's not going to be muscle that I'm putting on in that short period of time. Maybe half to quarter of a pound might have packed on some muscle, but that's about it. So what am I going to do now? Well, the first thing is to look at my measurements. So I need to kind of understand where I am now, which will lead me to make a decision on what I'm going to do, if anything. But you know, I can feel, I've also kind of hopped on the scale. I know I'm about 2.5 kilos up. So the first thing is going to measure my waist, because that really does tell you. And I had a 25.5-inch waist, and it's now 27.5. So definitely a couple of inches on my waist. And then I had around about a 36-inch hip, and now I'm just under 38-inch hips. You could decide to kind of measure your bust. Mine tends to not change that much, so I just go my hip measurement and my waist measurement, and on each I'm up a couple of inches. And you know, I can tell by just kind of looking at my physique, looking at the side, looking at the back, I've definitely put on some body fat. So I'd want to kind of address that. We're kind of going to go into the kitchen and look at what I'm going to do to resolve this. So to lose that body fat I've gained, I'm just going to entirely focus on nutrition. And once I got that nailed, I may start to build in a bit of extra cardio. But the main exercise I'm getting in, which hasn't really changed, is strength training 4 times a week, doing 1 session of military fitness style of cardio, and then I'm just walking most of the rest of the time. I may just make myself more accountable in terms of my step count, so making sure I'm getting in like 10 to 15,000 steps a day. But that's not going to make the huge difference. The huge difference is weighing, measuring my food and being accountable. So I'm just preparing a little bit of a light lunch now, and to make myself accountable, I'm going to weigh my food out, and this is what's going to make a huge difference between when I kind of gained those few extra pounds, those 5 extra pounds and more body fat, and before then. It's weighing and measuring my food and tracking it on MyFitnessPal. So I've got a scale here, and the first thing you do is you kind of press 0. So I've got it in grams there, and I press this button here to keep zeroing it every time I put something on the scale. So the first thing is to put the plate on. And you put the plate on, then you press 0, and it's going to take me to 0 grams, and I'm going to start weighing things out. So, shock horror, I'm not cutting the carbohydrates, I'm just measuring the carbohydrates. So I've got some whole grain sourdough, which is my go-to when it comes to bread, and that's 65 grams. So I'm going to weigh that out, that's 65 grams, press 0. I'm going to have some lettuce there, and that's 35 grams, although, as I said, you don't really need to weigh out things like lettuce. I'm going to have some tomatoes there. So I'm putting tomatoes on my plate. But I've pressed 0, so I know how much the tomatoes are going to weigh. Again, they're really low in calories, so that's 50 grams of tomatoes. Then I'm going to get my protein source. So I've got some cooked chicken. I've actually got cooked whole chicken. And I'm going to delve in and try and get some chicken breast. So that's some chicken breast there. I'm going to start weighing it out, and I'm going to go for about 100 grams of chicken breast. You could use any type of protein source. It could be like tofu. It could be some kind of fish. It could be beans. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to keep going until it gets to 100 grams, and then I'm going to kind of zero it. Right, so that's 95 grams, so that's kind of near enough. And then the next thing, because I want to like a little bit of fat on there, not a lot, I'm going to just sort of have this hummus. I'm going to press 0 again. It's quite important that I weigh this hummus out, because if I just plonk it on the plate, like I did do when I wasn't weighing and measuring my food, it's gonna be really high in calories. And I just want a little bit, so just to go on the side, so we just get some nice fats. So I've pressed 0 again, and then I'm just gonna put, that's 5 grams, probably gonna have something like 10 to 15 grams. That's like 9 grams there, so that's it. Just a really, really small amount of hummus. And this is what is going to make the difference between gaining a few pounds and losing some body fat. It's actually just weighing and measuring my food. It also keeps me accountable. It keeps me accountable for everything that I put in my mouth. And I find this is the only surefire way that I'm going to actually make some progress and lose some body fat, if that's my goal. That's what I need to be doing, is weighing and measuring my food. So next, we're going to take a look at what this is going to look like on MyFitnessPal and what I've eaten so far today. I'm showing you MyFitnessPal, so I'm going to show you how I kind of log my food. Now, I've already set up my calories and macros, which you would do in this section more. And you go into something called goals. And under goals, you can actually set up your own calories and macros, which I've set to 150 grams of carbs, 150 of protein, and 50 of fat. And that's 1,650 calories. So you would need to set that up so that you're in a calorie deficit. If you want more information on that, I have a video titled How to Transform Your Body Over 40, where it goes into much more detail on that. So do check that out, and I'll put it up at the end of this video. So what I need to do now is start logging my food. So I press the menu at the bottom which says log food. Now, I'm actually going to just log my breakfast from yesterday because I had about the same. Actually, the oats was a bit less. I had 37 grams of oats. Greek yogurt was a bit more than that. So I'm just going to put that. So I've logged my breakfast there. And I need to know, I had a pre-workout snack of 2 rice cakes and some tuna. So I'm just going to log that now. And the tuna, of course, everything that I normally eat just already comes up. So I think that's 30 grams of tuna I had. That's right. Yeah. So it's 33 grams of tuna. So we're now just going to go ahead and log what I've just weighed out. It's really important to do this straight away, otherwise you may forget what you've had. So we had 100 grams of chicken breast, didn't we? Lettuce. So we just go 1 cup of lettuce there. It doesn't really matter too much but we do need to weigh the tomatoes. We had 50 grams of tomatoes. Again, it's going to be negligible on the amount of calories. Then we had my sourdough bread, which was 65 grams, wasn't it? So that's 75 grams. It's just slightly more. So it doesn't matter. It's just going to give me a bit of an indication. And we had the 10 grams of hummus, didn't we? So that's going to be, I think that's going to be a quarter of that, isn't it? 10 grams. Let's just have a look. Yeah, that's 12.5 grams. So that's what I've eaten so far today. And then I will carry on logging, and I'll make sure. So in the top left-hand corner, I'm going to make sure I come in at that 1650 calorie goal. And then if I just press nutrition, it's going to tell me where I am on protein, carbs and fats. So I'm quite high up on carbs now. So I'm probably not going to eat anything too carb heavy now for the rest of the day so that I can stay under that. And then, I can afford to have a bit more fat and quite a lot more protein. So that's what's mainly going to be, the rest of the meals are made up of mainly fats and protein for the rest of the day. I hope that video has absolutely demonstrated to you that what happens when you don't do that is everything goes south. So it's really important to continue to weigh and measure your food. And then what I'm going to do is come back in 30 days time, make another video, see if I've got the inch loss, see if I actually look better in my bikini, and you can tell them what the difference is between not weighing and tracking your food and weighing and tracking your food. And I have actually got a bit of a curveball because I am going to be going away for about 5 nights to the USA actually. So that's going to be a challenge, although I am actually self-catering. So I'm staying in an Airbnb, which will make things a little bit easier, but I'll check back in with you in 30 days time so you can see how I got on.